This is a podcast about our lived experience, which unfortunately includes infant death and subsequent mental health struggles. Please take good care of yourself and only listen if this content feels safe for you right now. We'll still be here when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Judith.
And I'm Alina. We are internet friends turned real-life friends who both experienced the tragic loss of our sons to sudden infant death syndrome in winter of 2021.
In the year after Aiden died, my husband and I both became unemployed. My parents divorced, and we had to move 5 times for various reasons.
And as for me, just a few weeks before my son Quinn died, my then husband had come out to me as a transgender woman and were subsequently divorcing.
It's been a lot.
It's been a lot.
But as long as we're living, we will love our sons deeply and work to make sure that we live a life that makes them proud.
Welcome to As Long As I'm Living podcast.
We're so glad you're here.
Okay. Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Happy week of Thanksgiving. I think that's when this is going to come out for those of you here in the United States. If you are not feeling particularly grateful this year, we do actually have an episode from last year where we talk about things we are grateful and not grateful for. I'll link that in the description. It can be a complicated holiday, right? Complicated. And you know what? All the holidays are complicated, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
We wanted to put together a little survival guide, tips and tricks of getting through the holidays.
Tips and tricks. And I think I want to start with, if you are on the fence about whether or not you want to celebrate a holiday, feel like you're up for a holiday, just don't do it. Just don't do the holiday, run the credits music for the podcast. Like, we're all done. Just skip it. Just don't do it. Just don't do it.
Alina, I think also I think that's like not the best advice we could give, because what does that actually mean to not do it? Because sometimes you have no choice, but like the universe keeps putting holiday decorations up.
Yes, that's true too.
So I think we should also talk about how to hide from the world if you don't want to celebrate.
We have many tips. We're going to do the whole thing, the whole 9 yards, how to communicate your needs to your family, how to make it through.
What if we explore 2 things? You're at a crossroads. Celebrate or not celebrate. Let's go down, not celebrate, and then let's go down, celebrate. Okay.
Okay.
So you've decided you are not celebrating this holiday. What does that mean for you? Now, Alina, you've been through 2 times not celebrating the holiday, meaning you had Thanksgiving and Christmas. They turned out poorly. Well, one was poor and one was okay. Talk a little bit about the 2 different directions you went when you were not celebrating and which one was that better.
Excellent. Okay. So last year, as Judith said, so I didn't celebrate either Thanksgiving or Christmas. Not celebrating Thanksgiving went superbly. I literally completely bypassed the holiday. The first step was basically me coming to this conclusion that I did not feel up for celebrating. So I communicated that to the people in my life, like, hey, by the way, I am not doing the holidays this year. I am just not doing them. And I reached out to a friend of mine and said, do you want to do Thanksgiving together? And so we called it Holiday Redacted, and we ate Mexican food and we got drunk. And it was great. We did not do one single bit of Thanksgiving-y shit, not one teeny tiny solitary activity, tradition, none of it. None of it. We pretended it was not happening. The only thing that made it clear it was Thanksgiving was that we kept trying to order Mexican food and places kept being closed because it was a holiday, which of course makes sense.
But if you are someone who does not want to celebrate it and you want to do takeout, then I would say talk to your friend that said to you and said, I'll be there for you. I'll do anything you need. And then you never heard from them again. Contact them and said, I have a task for you. I need you to call restaurants and tell me which are open for business and which are not on Thanksgiving.
Yes. And like I would say, pick something that is not even close to that food that you normally eat. If you normally eat like a big, fish dinner on whatever holiday, like don't get seafood. Like get Indian food. Get something totally different. Make it truly do your best to like separate it. Do it something completely different so that it really feels like a distinct, separate day. And like I said, communicate that to the people in your life as well. Because moving on to Christmas of last year, this is a sensitive topic for my family because to put it mildly, I had a meltdown on Christmas last year. I told my family that I did not want to celebrate Christmas. I thought I was really clear. In hindsight, I can see that I was not nearly explicit enough. And so that's my advice, is to be so super explicit and clear.
So what
you
should you
mean
have
by
told
not
them?
celebrating? I should have said, I would like to see you on this day. I'd like to eat with you. I do not want to see anything relating to Christmas. I do not want to exchange gifts. I do not want to do our traditions.
I would also add that it might be smart for you to host at your house, takeout, just because you can control the environment better. If you want to not celebrate but spend time with your family, then invite them to your house and do whatever takeout you want to do, or tell your family, you pay for the takeout, you order the takeout, but let's eat it at my house. And that way you won't have anything triggering. And another thing is you'll have your loved one, the one who's deceased, close by because they exist in your space with you. Yeah. And so that way you are, like, one thing I do, well, let's talk about this when we talk about it if you do want to celebrate, but I would definitely say have them at your place. Even if your place is a disaster, eat on paper plates and you can control the environment that way. And
on the flip side, having it at somebody else's means that you can leave easily. It's much easier to leave in a hurry than it is to kick people out in a hurry.
That's a really good point. So this is a couple other recommendations to make. Okay. I would say if you don't want to celebrate, go to a culture that does not celebrate. If you don't want to celebrate Christmas, spend time in the Jewish neighborhood because they're not celebrating Christmas either. I don't see any Christmas holiday decorations at the kosher restaurants. So, I mean, if you don't want to celebrate Thanksgiving, like, maybe there's a way to find a community of expats that don't celebrate Thanksgiving and eat in their space, or like a restaurant. The challenge about restaurants is that you want to make sure they're not doing like a Thanksgiving menu dinner thing. Right. But again, like, I would say, be mindful about the space and environment that you choose, because I'm not 100% sure that it's reasonable to trust your family when you say, I want to cancel Christmas, for them to fully understand what you mean. I think about, are they supposed to put the Christmas tree in their closet? Like, I can imagine.
I do think in hindsight it was unfair to them. In hindsight, I think it was unfair to them to ask them to do that without any guidance on what exactly I meant. And actually, I do think I remember my mom asked, like, can we keep the tree up? And I said yes. I don't know. And I think last year it was my first Christmas. Like, I really didn't know what I was going to want or need. And I think part of the reason I had, like I said, like a complete and total meltdown was like, I didn't know exactly what I wanted or needed. And I was hoping that they could guess, and they couldn't guess, and it's not their fault, but it was bad. Yeah. It was bad.
Something else I will say is, here's another suggestion. If you don't want to celebrate these holidays, break your family apart, not like permanently, but here's something that I learned from my parents' divorce. I don't feel that feeling of like Aiden is missing so much when I'm with my family, because there are a lot of people missing at the table. Like, my parents are divorced and they're not doing holidays together right now. So there's always going to be someone missing, either my mom or my dad. And so one thing I've noticed is it's a lot easier to, you don't feel that gaping hole as much when there are other people gone. So if you can just see your sister, or if you could just see your mom, or just your parents instead of the whole family together, and break apart that family unit, I think it might be a little more comfortable to not celebrate but still spend time with the people that you love than if everyone is together as a family. Even if everyone's together as family eating Chinese food, there's still that feeling of someone missing. So I would recommend breaking people apart. That's another suggestion I have. In terms of not celebrating the holiday at all, on Netflix, you don't have TV advertisements. So line up in advance a bunch of things that you might want to watch on that day. So focus on that. Another thing is, if you're going to go out of your house, I learned this on Mother's Day, the hard time. If you're going to leave your house, you have to leave your house on Thanksgiving. Leave at times when other people aren't out and about. Because if you're in the market and you're getting whipped cream, but like there are a lot of like moms shopping with their families for like last minute items, it's really painful. So if you have to leave your house, like I had to leave the house on Mother's Day, it was a horrible idea for me to leave the house at 10 a.m. Leave the house at 4 p.m. for Mother's Day. In this case, the opposite, leave at 9 a.m. when things don't feel as festive in the air.
Yes.
So you can kind of avoid that. And then another thing that I did is that I went out of town. Now, this is an expensive option. I'm not saying that this is going to work for everyone, but for the high holidays last year for Rosh Hashanah, my husband and I went to Seattle. We'd never been there before. We had a friend who lived there. We stayed at his house with his parents. Like, they didn't really talk to us much. We didn't really talk to them much, but we just got out of what we normally do for that holiday. We went somewhere totally different. We had no traditions in that new city. We didn't know anyone in that new city. We were able to kind of be like tourists. And then we went hiking. I mean, we did things that weren't in the city, and we were able to see a different place, and that was kind of exciting and different. And we pretty much skipped the whole holiday because we were in such a different environment. Nothing felt holiday-y about it. So if you're able to even get an Airbnb for a couple nights in a desert, like that would be a good way to also not celebrate.
Yes. And I think it's important for me to clarify, when I say I didn't celebrate Christmas last year, that means I didn't do the day of Christmas last year. I think Christmas is a holiday that is it's pretty impossible to avoid, at least in like the secular world. Like, the Christmas music is everywhere. The Netflix homepage is a bunch of Christmas movies. Like, the grocery store is filled with like Christmas shit. I don't know how you feel about this as a Jewish person, but to me, it's like, it's unavoidable. It's everywhere. And so we can maybe talk about some tips, like you said, like going out at certain times, but then they're also like, you can't avoid like the Christmas music in the store, and like people are still going to probably send you Christmas cards. We should talk about Christmas cards. There's just so many facets of this. So like, I don't want to make it sound like it's so simple, just snap your fingers and you don't celebrate. Like, obviously it's still completely in your face. And we're talking specifically about like this Thanksgiving and Christmas season. Judith doesn't celebrate Christmas. You do celebrate Hanukkah, and then you just had your high holidays. You have just been through the gauntlet of holidays.
I've been through it, and it was horrible.
It was bad. Yeah.
It was bad. I'll say something else that I feel it's important to address. What happens if you are somebody who does not want to celebrate, but you feel there's a religious component in which you're obligated to celebrate? So, Alina, you're not a religious person, but I suppose if you were a religious Catholic, going to Christmas ceremony or Christmas services at your church would be something that would be triggering, but also maybe would feel like a sense of obligation and like the idea of there's like two parts. There's like the traditions of the holiday, like the festivities, and then there's also the religious component. So if you're someone who does not want to celebrate the religious component, I'll talk about some strategies, for how to go through it if you do want to celebrate and practice. But if, let's say, you feel like a sense of obligation, I'll give you a perfect example. Yom Kippur, it's like the most important day, like holiday in the Jewish tradition. I personally do not feel that I am able to not participate in services in one way or another. I feel like I have to. But we'll talk about some strategies to get through there. But I also want to say, you are entitled to take this year off from the religious component. And I have to believe that God will understand. I don't know that for sure, but if there's a piece of you that's like, I don't want to do this anymore, just don't do it. Stay home and do not do the religious component, because it will be there next year. And I found the religious stuff and like the words to be so unbelievably triggering that at some point on Yom Kippur, I left and I never went back. So I guess what I'm saying is, you have my permission, which is wholly useless. But you have my permission to leave and not celebrate the religious side either, if that's what you need to do this year. There are ways to do a ceremony at home, whether that means zooming into one that maybe feels so different than yours. Maybe you can zoom into a church anywhere in the country. Like,
I was going to say, or if you've traveled, you can go to a different congregation where you
can go to a different congregation, 100%. And also you can just pray at home. You can do it just for yourself this year, and that's okay. Or you can, skip all the words if that's too triggering for you and write your own. You know, you can write your own Christmas prayers, your own whatever religious prayers for whatever holiday you have. Easter, I imagine. You can do your own. The point is to spend time with God and to whatever celebrate that day to be. You have every right to express that sentiment in what ways that feels comfortable for you. The language that's given to us, the services, is a template. So we can use that template if that's meaningful for us. But if that's not meaningful for you, if that's too triggering for you, come up with your own. And that will serve just fine this year.
Yeah.
Oh, that's one more thing I'm going to say. Oh, this is very important. And then we'll go on to what happens if you decide you do want to celebrate. If you do not want to celebrate this year, I want you to know that it's not going to last forever.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that I would never want to celebrate another holiday ever again. I literally thought that last year. I was like, I'm never going to celebrate ever again. And this year I just went through the high holidays myself. And I would say there are 7 of them. 6 out of 7 were horrible. But that last one, we had a Rosh Hashanah dinner with just friends and my mom. And it was so beautiful and lovely and felt so good in my heart. And I hope that next year, maybe I can have 2 holidays that I enjoy. You know, this is not permanent. It's the process. So this year you can't celebrate Christmas. Maybe next year you'll celebrate Christmas Eve. Maybe not. Maybe in 2 years. But this is not forever. This is just right now.
And I think I can imagine people are listening to this and they're saying, okay, that's all well and good, but I have to celebrate. My family would never forgive me if I didn't celebrate. And I just want to say, you still don't have to celebrate. Even if you feel like your family would never forgive you, if they don't forgive you for taking care of yourself after your baby died, fuck them. Okay? Well, you got to do what you got to do.
But let's explore the path of like, okay, I've decided I have to celebrate it. Let's say, Alina, okay, we do have children, but if I this is something I think about all the time, you know, let's say you have a 7-year-old at home, an alive 7-year-old. You're going to cancel Christmas for your kid too? Like, that's not fair. So
I would encourage you to modify it, but okay.
Right. So let's talk about what happens if you have to celebrate the holidays. What are some tips and tricks to get through celebrating the holidays?
Okay. My first tip or trick is set your expectations low, way down. Way down. If you, in years past, are somebody who bakes the Christmas cookies and you volunteer and you bake pies for the homeless and you run a food drive and then you also have a holiday party with friends and a holiday party with family and whatever, really scale back. Okay. Success is making it through the day. That's a great success. An extraordinary success is maybe making it through the day without a panic attack. Okay? Expectations need to be way low compared to years past. What do you think?
Yeah. I definitely think expectations are going to be low. I think that's one strategy. I think another strategy that's almost the opposite, but I think is also helpful, is if you throw yourself into one component that doesn't feel as horrific. So if you enjoy cooking, and it is comforting to you, don't make an entire meal because you'll kill yourself right now, but work on a pie and just lean into the pie. Make it the best pie that you've ever had. Like, I know someone who her live kid had a birthday party after her daughter died, and she went crazy in a coping mechanism way. I don't think it was the healthiest, but to get through the day, she had to absorb herself in the details of the day. And if that's something that feels like you want to do it that way, do it that way. This year for Hanukkah, Aiden's birthday's on Hanukkah, my birthday's on Hanukkah. It's just gonna be a horrible 8 days. But I have decided that I'm going to host a birthday party for myself the first night of Hanukkah. And the reason why I'm doing it is because I need something. I need something to hold on to, because if not, I think I'll just spiral. So I'm kind of faking it until I make it. And if it doesn't work out, I won't do it next year. But I feel it's either I lean in or I fall apart. So that's another, that's just one avenue. Okay. So let's talk about a few other tips and tricks. So how are you going to get through that conversation at the Thanksgiving table when everyone walks around and says, what are you thankful for this year?
Oh my God, kill
you
me.
know what's going to happen.
Kill me. The first thing I would say is maybe if you know the host, you can actually deliberately ask them not to do that. That is probably something I would recommend. But let's say you're caught off guard and that happens. This has not happened to me because, as I mentioned, I have not celebrated Thanksgiving. But I think if that happened at a dinner that I was at, I think, especially last year when it was the first one, I would have said, I am not grateful this year. Yeah. I think I would have been extremely truthful and just been like, I don't feel like I have a lot to be grateful for this year. And if somebody pushed me on it, I'd be like, again, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, seriously? How tone deaf can you be?
Well, people can be pretty tone deaf, but I would also say that sometimes I like give some bullshit canned answer that I don't actually believe. Like I'd say, I'm grateful for this food, like just to get the moment over with. Or I would just, honestly, I know myself, I'd go to the bathroom. I would walk out in that moment. I would, I would be like, oh, go ahead without me. Like, so those kinds of conversations, I feel like just avoid if possible. It's best to just avoid them. And that gives me another tip, which is try to control what you can. So have a conversation with the host beforehand and say, you know, I'm really nervous about this year's like Thanksgiving. I'm feeling really afraid about what it's going to bring up for me. You know, can we work together to come up with maybe a menu that doesn't feel as triggering, or can we come up with another question to ask when we go around the table? Try and control what you can.
Yeah, possible. I do have on here, like, over communicate your needs. Like, if you know there's a particular Christmas album that you listened to a lot when you were pregnant or when your baby was alive, like, you can say, like, hey, let's take that one out of the rotation because I know it's going to be triggering for me. And obviously this is hard because a lot of this requires you to really do a lot of thinking and planning, which can be hard. Like, believe me, I understand the impulse to just be like, I can't think about that. But if you, as much as possible, if you can think about those things that might be difficult for you and plan ahead and communicate about them with the people you're celebrating with, I think that will go a long way. And also, like, another thing that you can say is just like, if you're sitting around the dinner table and like you're feeling really triggered, like as Judith said, you can just get up and walk away, but you can also just say like, ooh, like I'm having a really sad moment right now. And like, you don't have to feel like you need to hold all your silent or sadness to yourself, like in silence, just to make other people comfortable. Like, I would hope that people you're choosing to celebrate a holiday with would want to sit with you in those hard feelings as well.
I wouldn't make that assumption, but it's possible.
I don't know that that's necessarily true, but that's how it should be.
That's how it should be. So here are another few tips that I have for getting through. Oh, another thing I'll say is in terms of controlling your environment. Let's say you're going to visit family and you have to stay overnight. Do your best to get out of staying at that person's house, because the more time you spend in someone else's house, the less you're in control. So I would really push to stay at a hotel instead of at that person's house, a neutral space that you can retreat into, a place where you won't have children running around and there won't be loud chaos. Like, this is what I'll say. The more chaos and like in moving variables that there is, the harder it is to hear your own thoughts. And when you're trying to navigate a landmine, you need the space, the privacy, the quiet to try and determine what will be difficult for you in these next couple hours and what will not. And the challenge of staying with families' houses is that there's often a lot of chaos and noise. And you don't get that space to really think about, how am I going to deal with these situations? Because what people don't realize when you're grieving is that your mind is going 100 miles an hour trying to play out what's going to happen next. You're also like staring at family structures. You're looking at that baby that was born around when your baby was supposed to be born. Like your brain is trying to process having the love of your life in the room, but not in the room. Yeah. And so it's so overstimulating.
Very overstimulating.
It can be really hard to navigate like what is going to hurt. And the worst is when triggers come out of nowhere. And so I would say part of just being able to understand your needs is having privacy, space, and quiet. So if you can, don't stay with your family. Come and go.
Yep.
Okay, but what do you do? You're sitting at the table. Like, how do you get through that meal? So here are a few things that I have developed. One is that I like to have a picture of Aiden in the dining room. Like, whether if it's at my house, there's a picture of him. It's my sister's house, there's a picture of him. Sometimes I just have the picture like on my phone. Like I'll look at the background of my phone that has his picture on it, as if to like bring him into the space with me, so it doesn't feel like he's left behind. I like to see his. They talk about the empty seat at the table. I like to see a full table, and that means having him there with me. So that's one thing that's important to me. Another thing, and I find myself doing this all the time to the point where I'm sure it's obnoxious and annoying, like I'll bring him up because I just need him to exist in that space. So I'll like talk about, Aiden was such a good sleeper. Like I'll just say his name, even if it's completely like irrelevant. I just find that I need to bring him into the space. And so that means talking about him, looking about him. And only once I've done that do I feel like comfortable.
Yes.
Do you find yourself doing that too?
Absolutely. I talk about him all the time for that same reason. And one thing that we did last Christmas that I really liked, this was actually my parents' idea. They did this, but we got a big, long taper candle, like one of those really big, long ones, and burned it, like lit it at the Christmas table. And they said, we're going to leave this all night into Christmas and let it burn completely out for Quinn. And I thought that was really nice. I wound up, again, as I mentioned, like leaving early because I had a meltdown. But I knew that candle was still there with them. And so a piece of him was there with them, I mean. And like, I don't think I brought his ashes to Christmas last year, but I know I brought his ashes to Easter when I went to my in-laws for Easter the previous year, just a couple months after he died. So I did bring his urn with me, and he was there in the house with us. And that also felt good. A few other things. I have bought, like, how they have like Christmas pajamas. If your tradition is to buy your family Christmas pajamas, buy your kid that passed away Christmas pajamas too. Okay, they'll never use it, but that doesn't matter because you can bring it to the next year, the next year, the next year. That's important for you. Buying gifts. If you're going to, if all the kids are going to be opening their gifts and you're going to be so sad that he didn't have a gift or she didn't, your daughter or son that passed didn't have a gift, buy them a gift and, give it to everyone else, give it to other people. Buy a box of cookies and wrap that up. Even if it's something like, sometimes I find myself like privately doing my own traditions. Like I would wrap myself something for Aiden to open up just for me to do because it's important for him to be included. Another thing is we have things with his name. So we have like menorahs with his name on it, and we light his menorah too. When Hanukkah comes, like we light his, we light ours. Everybody gets one, and he's a member of the family, and he gets a menorah. And I would say Quinn has ornaments, and if you're gonna have, if you're gonna be grieving, this is gonna be a member of your family forever, and so you can continue to buy ornaments in their memory and look at the tree and have them be a part of your family. And this is one other thing that I'll say that I think is very ambitious, but if you're supporting a grieving person, let's say you're hosting a grieving person, I think it would be something so beautiful if the person hosting the meal said, everyone is here tonight except Quinn, except Aiden. Like, let's take a minute just to acknowledge them, welcome them into our space, remember them. Like, we're so sad they can't be here with us. Even just that one sentence would make me feel so seen and so valid. I agree. And you mentioned like Quinn has ornaments. He has ornaments on the tree. Like I still have his Christmas stocking that has his name on it. And I think anything that you can keep in your home, like I said, if you're hosting the griever, like last year with my Christmas card, I did send out a Christmas card, and we will talk about those. I included pictures of Quinn last Christmas, and I know that people kept those up for the whole Christmas season. So like, a picture of Quinn at Christmas from the previous year was in so many people's homes last year. And that was both a combination, something I did, choosing to print those out and sending them to people so that he was very present in their lives. And then also they made the choice to keep that photo up. And that felt good to me too, for them to support me in that way and support him and keep him alive. It's hard.
So let's talk about holiday cards.
let's talk about it. So
I got your holiday card this year, and you were gorgeous, and I look at it every time. I'm like, that's a really pretty picture of you, Alina.
You don't do holiday cards, right?
No, but I sent you one last year because I love you.
I know. Judith sent me the funniest holiday card last year, which I think I'll probably repost to our Instagram at the time that we released this episode, because it was so funny. But so let me talk about holiday cards for a second. So as I mentioned, I'm not religious, but ever since I got married, I have sent a holiday card. Typically like a happy holidays versus a Merry Christmas. But it just felt like a thing that families do. And once I got married, I was a family. And, so Kaylee and I sent out a card. And then when Quinn was alive, we sent out a card that had the 5 of us, me, Kaylee, Quinn, and our 2 cats. So that was our 2020 Christmas card. And then obviously the shit hit the fan right around Christmas time, right after Christmas time. And so heading into Christmas of 2021, I was really hemming and hawing about whether I wanted to send a holiday card or not. And I made the decision that I did want to. And the reason was I already felt like my family had been broken, but I didn't want to feel like I didn't have a family at all. Like I wasn't a family. So I sent a holiday card last year. It was a photo on the front of me and my cats, just me and my cats. And then in the envelope, I included some photos of Quinn and me from Christmas the previous year. And it just felt like a good mix of honoring the fact that I was alone, but that I still had a life worth documenting and that I was still alive. And then I also liked including pictures of Quinn in there. That felt good. And so heading into this year, Christmas 2022, I am still single. I do have a boyfriend, but we are not like engaged or sending a holiday card together. And so I, again, am sending out a holiday card that has just me on the front. And on the back, I have a whole bunch of pictures, and I really tried hard to paint a full picture of what my life looks like. So some of those are pictures of me happy, doing happy, fun things. I also have a picture of me asleep after a grief attack. I have a picture of our podcast logo. It really ran the gamut of things that felt important to me from this year. And some of those were grieving. I have a picture of Quinn's urn with some candles lit from his birthday. Like I really tried to be honest about what my life looks like, and probably makes it a very non-traditional Christmas card. I also mentioned my heart condition on the back. Like it's like the most depressing holiday card, but like I kind of like it. Like that's what my life is, Yeah. I'm proud to send it out. I feel good about it.
And I would say if you're receiving a Christmas card, just throw them out. Like you don't want to see everyone with their happy lives. They're not as happy as they look in that picture. Trust me, they have problems. And they're all bullshit. And it's like another advertisement for what your life should have been, could have been, and would have been. And so just throw them out. Don't even open them.
What I used to do is I would like keep them in a pile, and then on a day that I felt good, I would open them. And then if I looked at the picture and it felt icky and made me feel bad, I would throw them away. And if I liked them, I would keep. There were a couple I kept. I really liked the ones when people sent me a card and they wrote something like, been thinking about you all year. I'm sure this time of year is really hard, like keeping Quinn in my thoughts or something. Like I really liked when they acknowledged the loss in the card and didn't just like stab me in the heart with a happy family. Like
another really thing is like that. If you're someone who wants to send out a Christmas card, but you don't want to trigger someone, like if you knew you were sending one to Alina, you don't have to send her one with their family picture on it. You could just send her a Christmas card that's like a Hallmark card. That's generic.
It's so true. And the other thing is too, like you can ask, like you can text your greeting person and say like, hey, I'm packaging up my holiday cards. Is that something you want to receive this year or no?
Yeah, exactly.
Just ask.
So, okay, let's think through a couple other things that we would recommend if you are going to celebrate the holidays. How are you going to get through them? Mm-hmm. So I want to go back to the religious component.
Okay.
If you are going to celebrate the holidays and you are going to go to the services, here are a few tips and tricks to get through those. First and foremost, wear a hat. Wear a hat, and if you can, wear a mask. And I recommend this because if you get very teary-eyed during the service, you're just going to want some privacy, and wearing a hat and a mask, no one can really see you and you can cry all you need. So that would be my recommendation. Another recommendation that I have is read the text of the services in advance. Because you're going to want to know, again, we said like the worst is when triggers come out and surprise you. So if there's a part of the service that is going to be very emotional for you, highlight it, maybe put like a little post-it by it so you can step out, or at least you know that it's coming. Yeah. You can step out and come back when that song is over. Another thing I would say is that sometimes I find like overexposure to be really helpful. So if there's like a tune that is triggering, if I listen to the same tune over and over again and associate different memories, it kind of loses its power. So if Amazing Grace is very triggering for you and you know they're going to play that, listen to Amazing Grace 25 times in the safety and privacy of your own bed until it almost loses the power that it has over you.
That's a great tip.
Yeah. So I've done that for a lot of religious things as well. And then another thing is, give yourself permission to leave and not come back. You don't have to. And this is another thing I'll say. The sermon, the religious leader's sermon, is probably going to be triggering because they're not writing it with grievers in mind. So I would just recommend don't even listen to it, because they're going to be sitting there being in so much pain, and they're going to talk about forgiveness. And it's just, it's just always painful and never helpful. So I would recommend don't even bother listening to it. Come back when the speech is over and you can continue with the service. Okay, so a few other tips and tricks. Another thing, again, is if you have a normal place where you sit, let's say you always sat with your mom and now your mom passed away, or you're going to sit next to your sister and your sister has 5 kids, whatever it is, I would recommend choosing a different seat in the back away from everyone. It's really hard to watch your peers and have to be next to them and moderate your facial expressions. And so the privacy of the back, I think, is just a good coping mechanism. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a couple other. Can you tell I've spent a lot of time doing this?
Well, you guys have a lot of holidays.
We have so many holidays. Okay, so there's this part, there are always parts where children are featured. Maybe there's a choir or something. And if you're going to be standing there watching children singing dressed up as angels, again, it's not going to be good. Just leave, because this is what I'll say. You don't have to be a hero. And it takes heroic strength to do some of these things. If they are religiously required, or maybe you feel a sense of obligation, there are times where maybe it's worth it. Listening to a choir is not a religious obligation. So it's kind of like, my recommendation is do what you feel is absolutely required and nothing more. Nothing more.
There's always next year. There's always next year. And the sermon is extra. The singing is extra. Another thing I'll say is that I would suggest in every community, there is a church, a temple that is dying and fading, and church membership is shit. No one shows up. It's depressing as fuck. Go to that place. You don't have to go to your normal church. You can go to the church that is dying. And this is why I think you should go there. When all the seats are empty, it doesn't feel so empty to have the seat next to you be empty. When everyone is tuned out, it doesn't feel so weird that you're tuned out. When everyone is depressed, it doesn't feel so weird that you're depressed. So don't go to your normal place of worship. Go to the place of worship that's suffering, and then you'll feel at home. I love
100%
that
serious about this.
I love that tip.
I think that's really good advice. I really recommend that.
I love that tip.
Oh, one last piece and then I'm done. Okay, this actually is very good advice. Again, if you're going to a religious service, if there is someone in the community that is also grieving or has lost a child, sit next to them, because there's strength in numbers. Mm-hmm. And I have found a lot of solace knowing that I'm not alone in this grief. Yeah. And in the hardest times, sometimes it's good to just know that there's someone holding it with you. Yeah. So if there's someone that has recently lost someone in their family, sit next to them. You know, this person I know in my community lost her dad a week before the high holidays, and I invited her to sit next to me for at least some of it. I ran out crying and left early, so I wasn't there for all of it. But reach out to that person, other person, and say, like, let's do it together. Yeah. So those are my tips to get through the holidays if you're religiously inclined.
I have one last tip, which is, this is something I've done for every holiday, pretty much every holiday, not just like Christmas and Thanksgiving. Plan something for after the holiday that you can look forward to. So for me, that has typically been like, I'll either say like, okay, I'm going to go get a massage like the next week.
Yeah.
Or I make like a fun date with a friend, like something that is within the next couple of days after the holiday, so that when you are on the floor feeling upset and triggered by the day, you can be like, at least tomorrow I'll be getting a massage. Yeah, that's a really good tip. And if you don't have somebody, you know, we are here too. We obviously can't sit with you at services or go to your family's Thanksgiving table, but we are feeling it with you. And we wish you guys the absolute best of luck.
It doesn't have to be pretty. Let's just get
It does not have to be pretty. Let's just get through it.
To all of our wonderful new friends, we want to hear from you. Email us at aslongasimlivingpodcast@gmail.com. And follow us on Instagram at aslongasimlivingpodcast. We'll get back to you as soon as our grieving brains allow.